Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas. Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado.
Because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alicia.
I'm Nathan.
I'm John.
And welcome to episode 110 of Adventures and Mousecapades. This week, we are talking about the absolute travesty that is the band skipping their final show at the Country Bear Jamboree in Frontierland. The rumor is that Liverlips McGraw was 3 sheets to the wind and so inconsolable that he went down to the courthouse to legally change his name to Romeo.
True story.
Wow. True story.
Yeah. No, seriously, this week we're talking to Jon Armstrong. He's an amazing musician. You're a musician?
A musician?
Yeah, you're a musician now.
You know what? Sure. You pronounce it however you need to. I believe that was the French pronunciation.
That's totally.
Le musician.
All right, I'm going to try that again. This week, we're talking to Jon Armstrong, an amazing magician, entertainer, who you just may have seen once or twice on TV, or if you're lucky like us, got to see on a Disney cruise. A native of Orlando, Jon became a resident magician at Walt Disney World at just 20 years old. He's performed in Vegas at the world-famous Magic Castle in LA, and for a glorious 2-week stint in March of 2020 aboard the fantastic Disney Wonder as we noped out of nearly every port of call with the pandemic closing down the world. Welcome, Jon.
Happy to be here, yes. Quite the adventure.
Yes, indeed it was. So how would you describe your style of magic? We've seen you in both intimate settings and large auditoriums. Like, what's your kind of forte?
I'm very much a mixture of comedy and magic, but I really don't like to refer to myself as a comedy magician. I'm a magician first. The joke I always make is people say you're really funny, or say that I'm a comedian. I go, I identify as a magician, but thank you. And that's it. I do in a humor style. I do what I like to think of as actually pretty impressive, amazing magic, but in a far more relatable way than, haha, I can do this and you can't.
Yes. Just as kind of an aside, have you ever played, or did you ever play, I guess now, Warren and Annabelle's in Lahaina out on Maui?
No. So it was basically Warren, who was the founder of the place. Mm-hmm. And then he brought in basically 4 guys for pretty much the entire run. And then towards the end, before it actually burnt down, which is a sad tragedy, honestly, there was a local magician, a very great, who lived there in Hawaii, that they were using as well. But no, that unlike the Magic Castle or a lot of other magic venues that are around the world, he basically had a core group of 2 people, and that's all he used. No, I never did it. This long-winded way of saying no.
No, that we were watching a few of your clips online on YouTube and stuff like that last night, just as a reminder, a refresher, because it's been a few years since we've seen you, and Warren and Annabelle's came to mind of like that would have been the perfect venue to watch you and do your art. It was so well set up for those close up card tricks and things like that. So
yeah, very intimate theater. I think it was like 100 seats. It was, it was great.
If that.
I will caveat that other than on the Disney Cruise Line, that is the only type of magic show that we've ever been to. Yes. So.
Oh, so you've never been to like a big scale illusion show a la Vegas, David Copperfield, Penn and Teller, Mass Burton? No,
I have been to one. I've been to a Penn and Teller at Vegas.
Okay, in their show at the Rio. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Those guys are.
I mean, we've seen some of their stuff on TV, but I haven't seen them in person.
Yeah, Warren and Annabelle's has been the only place we've gone to, really, honestly.
We're much more into musicians.
Oh, musicians.
Musicians, yeah. If you do magic and music at the same time.
Yes. There's a few guys who do that, but I'm not one of them.
So how did you get started into the world of magic?
So I grew up in Orlando, and back then, I'm 48. I'll just take how old I am, and I'm 48. And so I've been around for a while. And back then, in the 80s, you could get an annual pass to Disney World to all 2, just barely 3 theme parks very cheaply. It's not how it is now. It's like an annual pass was actually very cheap.
Yeah.
And so even though we didn't exactly grow up, I didn't really grow up with means, it was very easy for my parents to just basically, especially in my early teen years, just drop us off at the park because we had annual passes that cost maybe $200 a year back then.
Right.
And so we did that. And so because of that, I was always very fascinated with how things worked, how the busts were following me and the Haunted Mansion, where the ghosts were coming from, all the different effects. How are these things not burning down, but yet it looks like it's on fire, and all that stuff. And then on top of that, I would see performers performing in the different locations, especially like at the beginning of the studios for Streetmosphere and stuff like that. And I got very, very lucky. I saw a magician do. The first time I ever saw a magician was at a place called Circus World, which was an old, which was a park that was in Haines City, not that far from where Legoland is now.
Okay.
And Cypress Gardens, that area. And I saw a magician in Circus World, Barnum & Bailey's Circus World, that later on turned to a place called Boardwalk and Baseball. And that's where the Kansas City Royals did their spring training. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So I did that. And then there was a magician at SeaWorld, which, as you all know, still exists. Yeah. And he did like a medicine show pitch. So the show I saw at Boardwalk and Baseball or at Circus World was more of a traditional illusion show. Slick guy, girl gets in box, chop, 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 that type of thing, which I loved. But I was far more interested in this other guy who performed in a much more comedic style and who actually did sleight of hand. Yeah. On stage still, but sleight of hand. And then when I was 14, at the Studios Park, back when it's still the Disney MGM Studios Park, I saw a guy with a table and a deck of cards and some dice and stuff that was all very hands-on, people all around him, surrounding him, wow a crowd, and I went, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so that's where it all started from. And he became my mentor. I had already been studying, and I say very loosely, there's some bunny ears quotation marks going on when I say that, before I met Terry. But then when I saw Terry Ward do his show, I immediately approached him, and he said, okay, I guess I'll teach you some stuff. And then I would go to the park and he would show me stuff on his breaks. And then we became friends. And to this day, I just saw him last week. He's like a father to me. So like, awesome. So that's where it all started for me. And everything kind of, he introduced me to other performers, introduced me to magic books, the great works, the important things that I needed to do, and to bring myself up to where I was. And yeah, that's it.
How did you get connected with Disney?
Well, again, it's in my blood, right? Mm-hmm. So I grew up around Disney. I grew up around the Orlando parks, right? Yeah. And especially at that time, there's very strict regiments for grooming standards and tattoos and all that stuff, traditions. I mean, because back then, like when the place was not gigantic and they just needed to staff it, they could be very selective about who they were hiring and what they were not hiring and so on and so forth. And so it was very much part of the culture. Like that was like it bred into me. There were so many kids in my high school had internships at Disney, or their after school jobs were at Disney. They spent time with those annual passes at Disney. So it was just very much part of everything. Right. And because my inspiration for the thing that I loved the most, which was magic, was Disney, I obviously follow along with that. So it was in my blood, right? Yeah. And that's very important to establish. And then what happened is I was very lucky that my mentor was also a Disney performer. Mm-hmm. And then he, worked with me and and led me to other people, and I was working on stuff on my own and so on and so forth. So now I am 20 and I audition for a show that Terry does not want, and he recommended me, and I ended up getting a show at Epcot, being the Rose and Crown magician at the Rose and Crown pub, and I would perform there. Pam Brody, who was the pub pianist, she wanted to work sometimes 3 days a week, sometimes 4 days a week. It just depended on whatever she wanted. And Pam was beloved. I don't know if you ever got to meet Pam, but she was beloved. She predated the hat lady who was there, Carol Stein, who's also amazing. Oh, wow. Who was the pub pianist, right? Yeah. But anyway, but the thing about Pam was, she was a woman of later years, but she had a memory like a steel trap. And when people would come in like once a year, she'd remember their names, where they were from, their pets' names. It was ridiculous. And so she was beloved.
Yeah.
So they needed somebody to be the opposite days, and they didn't want to have another pub pianist because that was kind of Pam's thing. And so I performed there, and that was my in to then basically for the next 5 years do anything that my mentor didn't want to do or couldn't do scheduling wise. So I subbed in at the Diamond Horseshoe when that was still a stage show. So I did a magic act on stage there. I did whenever they needed. But one night a week for years, I also was the off at night for the Boardwalk Busker show. Because back then that was a formal show at the Boardwalk, as opposed to now where they just have this individual street performers. Yeah. There is a formal show. And then one night a week, me and a juggler did our own solo shows. And that became, and so I worked there one day a week. I also did sometimes during summer and peak crowds, I would do a gambler, like fake gambling, street con show in Frontierland. Then I did like line entertainment. I did every single corporate event you could possibly think of. We created a seance for the Haunted Mansion for a corporate event.
Wow. Oh, wow.
We did all these random things. And because I was working with other performers, not just other magicians, but also other disciplines, jugglers, ventriloquists, you name it, right? I learned a lot about entertainment in general. And it was the best sort of 5-year college I could have ever been paid to go to.
Yeah.
Because I was working with these performers and they were showing me things. And then I instantly could then go out and do 5 sets to hone in and lock in what these people were talking to me about. So, you would hang out with the people at the Adventurers Club who were amazing at improv and interactive environment stuff. Hang out with people at the Comedy Warehouse who were good about stage improv and, just coming up with lines and jokes. Hang out with the people who were these musicians who had to be able to draw a crowd and keep them in. Guys like John Charles, who another performer who performed on the ships a lot, but back then he was still working in the parks or at like the resorts, and he had this large following. How do you get them in? How do you make people care about you? Make people want to be your friends. And these are all things that I learned. So now I'm going to answer your question. There's a lot of backup here. Okay?
No, it's fine.
So I did this for years. I moved from Orlando to Las Vegas. I did a show in Las Vegas called Caesar's Magical Empire. And then when that show closed in Caesars, I moved to Los Angeles to be around the Magic Castle. And so there I was just gigging in Los Angeles. I didn't really have a permanent home. No one performs at the Magic Castle on a completely regular basis, except for maybe a couple performers. But for the most part, it's something you do a couple times a year. You really, there's not a lot of resident magicians there.
Got it.
But it was a place for me to learn and hang out and work on material. And then I started doing ships in general. And when I started doing ships, I was doing luxury lines, Regent, Silver Sea, Seabourn, like the 7-star lines, the white glove butler lines.
Right.
And I did those, and I was actually very successful at it, and I hated every second. It just really wasn't my crowd. I grew up in a trailer park in Orlando. These were not people who really had, and though I could do my show, and my show went over very well, I wasn't having a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah.
So again, super long story short, about a couple years into this, I say to my agent, you know what, I'm kind of done. Unless I can just like work like Princess, or let's bring me down a couple pegs. I don't need to work the luxury lines. I'd much rather just do one show on Princess. And he's like, well, what about Disney? And I'm like, whoa, why didn't you start there? Don't you know anything about me? And so I came into Disney through the cruise market.
Yeah.
And I was this weird thing to them. I wasn't just a magician who worked cruises. Yeah. I was a magician who had been through traditions 3 times, who knew all the lingo and understood what the 5 keys were, even before there were 5 keys, and like all this stuff, right? Like I understood what their brand is, what they wanted out of a show, what they needed, so on and so forth. And so when I came in, I wasn't coming in as just like, well, here's the cruise act. Let's see if he can work for our format. I came in as, I got this, guys. I got it. I know what you need. I know what we're going to do to make this work. And because of that, they could see very quickly that I went over very well for their format. And their format, I want to be very clear. I don't know how many other cruises or cruise lines you've been on, but their format is very different than how other cruise lines work. What they want out of the act is not what the standard thing is for other lines. Other lines basically go in, you do an hour show in a theater for everybody. It's usually geared towards like teenagers up because there's not a lot of little kids.
Right.
And that's it. That's your show. That's your job. And then a lot of the luxury lines, because they're smaller and you're there for a longer, they want you to do 2 45-minute shows that are, again, basically comedy-based shows. Right. And they're, again, all for adults. And here they were like, you need to do an hour family show, a half-hour adult show, and a workshop. You need to be able to play for the kids. They need to care what you need to be doing. And so some people just can't do that. But I could. That was very easy for me to blend into. And then, I just started doing ship after ship. And, you live or die by ratings. There's little cards that the lovely people fill out at the end of the thing. It says right there, what did you think of the magician? And when those scores are high, you do well. And when the scores are low, you're then replaced by somebody else. And so that's just how I got very lucky. I was because I understood what they were looking for. And I will sum it up like this. If you go on to Disney Cruise Line and you think, well, all I have to do is just slap some themes. I'll do the trick that I always do, but I'll do it with Mickey Mouse cards.
Yeah.
If you just try to theme your show, you guys, your listeners, the people who go on these, who pay money to be part of the Disney product, you know the difference. You can like, that's not the Disney product. That's just someone trying to pretend like they can do the Disney product.
Yeah.
But instead, if I take the spirit, if I understand what the Disney product is, which really is families being able to enjoy everything at the same time together, just really the product. And my show reflects that theme. No, I'm sorry, that spirit of that. And is less themed about a Disney show, but more about like, again, it has the spirit of something that would be considered a Disney entertainment. Well, then I'm going to have more success than someone who's just doing, a card trick with Avengers cards.
Yeah,
definitely.
How is that kind of Disney experience, from really the beginning of your career? How has that influenced everything else that you've done? Because, I mean, it is a very unique perspective, but I kind of imagine that being everything from on a fairly large stage to out there, like walking around in Frontierland, like doing sleight of hand stuff, like there's just this wide breadth, but you're really interacting with a wide variety of people in the public. Like, was that kind of like incredibly fertile training grounds? Like, is that something that's carried forward?
And I'm as good as a magician as I am now, if I do say so myself. But if I am as good as I am because of that time that I spent with Disney, I'm as good as I am because I did go through traditions a bunch of times. I'm as good as I am because I understood. And then even when I was not working, or because Disney is not my only client. I mean, the other thing that it's pretty much all I do cruise-wise now. In fact, it's the only thing I do cruise-wise now.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, I have a nice deal with Disney and I don't need to do anything else. But when I do land work, when I'm doing corporate events or, whatever, that exact same Disney sort of like service excellence. That they talk about, that that people pay them to train other employees to do. I take that into whatever event I'm doing. So I take those exact same 5 keys and put that into what I'm doing. I wrote a book for magicians where I talk about ways to build your show and make it more inclusive and interactive and engaging and so on and so forth. And all of that would never have come about if I didn't have the core of learning that stuff through all those years at Disney.
Right. It's your foundation. We've heard that from great friends, our best friends, our former cast members who my best friend Bill started off as a street sweeper in studios and ended up running finance for the water parks.
Right.
But that core of how you treat people, how you think of things, that is a foundation that anybody can build on. Yes, you're probably not going to be, thinking about somebody who's in college and looking about doing college program or something like that. You're not going to be running amusement park rides in your future. Well, probably not, right?
Maybe not.
But I think to your point, going through traditions, which is the training class that all the new hires get, going through all those foundational experiences and having that experience from the Disney perspective, man, the world is your oyster. If you understand how to think about whatever your job is from that perspective, you're golden.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up to you to execute, but having that perspective, because it's not necessarily as intuitive as we would all hope it would be.
Right. And it got my foot in that door. I mean, when I was submitted for Disney, what they want to see is they want to see the entire show. But where I had been working, there had been no way that I could do the exact type of show that I would do for Disney anywhere else. I mean, I built a show for Disney, right? And what I literally did is I said, okay, I will submit an essay. And I wrote an essay. I'm not joking. I think I'm the only act that's been hired this way. I wrote an essay about my background and explained all the stuff that we've just been talking about. And that was they're like, okay, if he understands this, then we're going to take it on good faith that when he comes on the ship, we can, and they had seen stuff. They'd seen my television appearances and things like that. Obviously, sure. None of those are a complete unknown, obviously. But, we'll take it on good faith that he could come in and the show will reflect what we're looking for. And, and obviously I delivered because here I still am.
We know a lot of crew members have like 6 or 7 month contracts, but when you're on DCL, how long are you on board for?
So I'm a weird thing, right? So throughout all of cruising, this is not Disney specific. There are guest entertainers, and the operative word there is guest. Mm-hmm. So we are passengers, just like you are. We are on a guest manifest. We do not relate. We're not crew. We're not allowed in crew areas or things like that.
Okay.
And because of that, we stay in guest cabins. There's a lot of rules, so be very clear. Sure. There are definitely rules that there's things that I can't do that you could do as a passenger. But for the most part, I have the exact same privileges as any passenger, with small exceptions. Mm-hmm. And that's basically industry-wide. Okay?
Yeah. Okay.
And on Disney, they're very, very, very good about allowing me to have my family with me for free. Now I have to pay for their travel, but they do. If they stay in the cabin with me, I don't have to pay any extra freight for my daughter or for my wife to come with me.
Yeah.
So they're really good about that, which is awesome. Yeah. And that is not industry wide, to be very clear. And so I usually am not spending the months at a time that a crew member would.
Right.
Because again, I am not crew.
Right.
How it normally works is that, or at least this is how it's been going for a while now, is they usually book about 6 months to a year out.
Okay. Okay.
I am then asked, what are my availabilities for that particular year, let's say, or 6 months. Yeah. I then give my availabilities. They then slot me in as much as they can use me around my availabilities, but normally never more than I am on for a week and then back off for a week. So, and how that would normally work is that they would be usually rotating me with another magician. So I would be the one magician for that cruise, and another magician would take over for the week that I'm off. Or I would be doing only, let's say, the 5-day cruises, and then the next 2 cruises are 4-day cruises, and they don't need a guest act for those. And so then I would just come in and do just the 5-day or more cruises based on that. And that would give me the time away.
Got it.
So it's not precise. There are definitely times where I am getting off one ship and then 2 days later getting on another ship. That just happens the way it all scheduling went. But for the most part, it's week on, week off.
Okay.
And that's it. Yeah. And I'm a full passenger. And basically the rules are I can't do anything that would take something away from you guys. So I can't play trivia and steal your medals. I can't play bingo and win the jackpots. I can't do things where you, as revenue passengers who paid money, I'm taking things away from you. Even if it's not me directly, if it's my family, that wouldn't count. Right. I would not allow it. So my daughter, my 3-year-old daughter, cannot play bingo as much as she wants because she's a big, heavy gambler. So we can't do that, right? We can't do anything in which I would be an embarrassment to the company. I can't wear a big shirt that says something rude or offensive or political or whatever. I can't do anything like that. I obviously have to keep myself in good state because I am reflecting the company in some way, especially after they see my show. So I can't be publicly intoxicated, all that sort of stuff. And then lastly, I can't get involved with either crew or passengers in a romantic fashion. So no bringing people back to my cabin, no going to their cabins, nothing like that.
Yeah.
So, and that's
your wife would have something to say about that anyway.
My wife, but yes, but I'm glad that all of that is just completely off the table anyway.
Right.
Because let's just say there have been performers that did not follow those rules.
Yeah. Usually the rules exist for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it, really. I mean, it's super easy. I can eat the buffet whenever I want. I can, like I go room service at 3 a.m. Sure. And it's not, if you can follow 3 very basic rules, you're able to do the job.
Do you find yourself getting off at some of the ports of call? Like, do you do shore excursions ever? Or are you kind of doing?
If I have my daughter with me and there's something fun that I'm going to do with her, or my wife could care less about most things involving. Here's the thing: I don't like water or sand or beaches or sun. That's really and I thought, cruise entertainment. That's what I'll do.
Yeah.
So it's really not my thing, right? But that said, my daughter loves the water. Oh my God, she loves the water. So like on some of the Mexican ports, for example, like Cozumel, there's like these water parks that have a beach and a water, and I'll take her to that because she loves that and it's a good day and we have a good time. But when I'm by myself, very rarely do I leave the ship, especially if it's a port that I've been to a million times.
Yeah.
And then, but sometimes I will just leave because it's a port where I can just go, have a hamburger somewhere that's not the same hamburger that I've had a million times on the ship or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So you just go out and one of the greatest parts about, because there's a lot of either Caribbean, I'm doing a lot of West Coast stuff, so I can do a lot of Mexican ports, right?
Okay.
And because of that, there are great places just to grab like awesome tacos or whatnot. And so you go out, grab some tacos, come back to the ship. But I have a big rule, it's a Jon Armstrong rule, that I will never leave the ship when there is a tender, because I don't know when I'll get back because of the tender, because the tender ships. And then that could really screw up my schedule if they need me for something last minute, because it happens where they're like, this act fell off, or we can't. Well, they fell off. They didn't fall off the ship, but like this guy got sick. We have to we have to move Frozen to the next night. Can you be on? And if I'm not ready to do that, like if I'm stuck on land and I can't get back on a tender, then it's on me, right? So so that's one thing I don't really do. I don't do big tenders. And then I never really leave the ship at all, even in walk-off ports, if it's a show day. Like because I don't know what happens if I accidentally get stuck and then I can't get back to the ship. Yeah. Those are just Jon Armstrong rules.
Yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense. I'd probably have the exact same rules, to be frank.
Have you been on all 5 of the ships?
No, they don't have guest entertainers on the Wish yet.
Oh,
yeah.
They've had a couple of them because the shows have gone down or they've had issues or when we're just starting up. But for the most part, a guest entertainer is on a regular feature of the Wish because it's either a 3-day or 4-day cruise.
Yeah.
So you don't need one. They'll
That's
have them
true.
immediately on the Treasure because all those are 7-day cruises.
Right.
But no, right at this point, I've never been on the Wish, and I want to because I want to go to that Marvel restaurant so bad. So bad.
I couldn't tell from your attire.
Right. I'm wearing a basically this is Winter Soldier style. And then I'm wearing the more traditional cap.
Yes. Which this segment right here is purely amazing for an audio only podcast. Like you should see what we should see. Right? Like
you should see all of my wardrobe. Well, one of the things I wear on the ship a lot is I have real crew hats. Because I've done some stuff for Marvel in the past, and so I have real crew hats. So I'll wear these real crew hats or this crew jacket. I have an Infinity War crew jacket. It's real legit, and people are like, and I'm like, yeah, it's real. It's real.
Nice flex.
Yeah, it's good flex. I like that flex.
All right, so we know what our experience was in 2020 on our westbound Panama Canal cruise. So for those of you listening, this was a cruise that left New Orleans en route to San Diego. We left, what was it, the 2nd or 3rd or something like that of March?
6th.
Or 6th?
6th, I think, yeah.
Yeah. And through the Panama Canal. And needless to say, if you check your calendar, that cruise got a little interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We were okay through Grand Cayman, and then we were pulling into Cartagena, Colombia. We were late because somebody had to get medicaled back over to Grand Cayman, so we were like half a day late or something like that. and they wouldn't let us dock. And that's when things went really sideways. So, John, from your perspective, how did all that go down? Like, were you planning to get off in Cartagena? I had heard that they were going to do a lot of the entertainment, guest entertainers were swapping out at Cartagena.
Sure. Just so everybody understands, on a 14-day cruise like that, they have to change out the guest entertainers multiple times at ports because you need different shows for the evening shows, and even when you add the guest talent show and movies and things, not the guest talent show, but the crew talent show and things like that, you still need about 8 guest entertainers on a 14-day cruise like that. So because of that, you're usually only doing either the beginning of it, the middle of it, or the end of it. And I was there for the beginning of it. I was supposed to leave on day 5, which was the Cartagena day.
Right.
Well, I was paired with another guest entertainer whose name right now is escaping me, but I'm going to try to remember it. But he is a comedy act, great comedy act, and so he was able to get off in Grand Cayman with his family. Now I was with my wife, who was 5 months pregnant, with our daughter, and so this was her last cruise before being too pregnant to go on cruises, because that's actually a rule. And then we were gonna, if the world had shaped out differently, we would have gone on like a baby moon to like Santa Fe. Pretty much right after this, I was doing a week of shows in Lake Tahoe. I headlined in Lake Tahoe. I was doing a week there, and then immediately after that, we're going to do this baby moon. So that was the plan. And my wife was with me through the whole thing. And what ended up happening is that the world shut down. And that's when the president at the time of the United States decided that everything had to shut down, that the individual states were now going into lockdowns, and the world as a whole were going into their own lockdowns. And at that same time, there was these stories of these cruise ships that were basically out at sea and were not able to get into ports because of the fact that no port wanted to actually have anybody who might have had these viruses on, and the cruise ships were some of them were carrying the original versions of the coronavirus. So anyway, we were locked out, and we were literally my wife, the other act that was that was still on board with me, because which was a cappella act.
Yes.
We were literally waiting to get off. They were trying their best to still, even if we can't get to the port, can we just let these guys off and let them go home to the U.S. or whatever? And that didn't happen.
Oh, goodness.
And the acts that were supposed to be picked up in Cartagena, including John Charles, who I just mentioned before, they were stuck in Cartagena and they couldn't get on the ship. So now there was no new acts. And the midsection is where you get the most acts. Usually 4 acts come on during that midsection through the canal to the other side. So now I and this a cappella group, along with William and Natalia, who are the dance teachers, who are there the entire cruise. They're never going to leave the entire cruise because they have them there for these longer cruises, are the only acts on board. And we're the only entertainment. And so, we're not to toot my own horn. So I'm down there with Ashley Long, the cruise director, who opened the Wish. Is one of the sort of the up cruise directors in the entire fleet, and someone I consider a friend. We were down there with Ashley, and Ashley's doing her best to try to get my pregnant wife back to the United States, because we all know what's going on, and we're just trying to do this.
Right.
And it's not going to happen. They're not going to let us off. We're on the ship. We're going to stay on the ship.
Yeah.
And there was supposed to be the person that was going to get on. One of the people who was supposed to get on was supposed to do the adult show that night. And I said, I could do the adult show if you need me to. And I'd already done my adult show. But I said, I have the material. I can do another adult. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And so I ended up doing that night. I ended up doing the show. Because I kind of realized something, guys. I realized that if I didn't start performing right now and do it as much as I possibly could, that there was a good chance I wasn't going to be able to perform for a while, and I was right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm with it. Whatever you need, I am here to do it. And then I ended up doing 14 different shows throughout the entire cruise.
My gosh. Amazing.
One, because I'm a walking encyclopedia of magic. Like it's all, those, like these bookshelves are basically like what it looks like in my brain. Like this is just full of magic knowledge.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. And the second thing is they let me kind of do whatever I wanted as long as I didn't punch kids or said the F word, right? So like at that point they were fine with me as long as I could, and these shows were not going to be as polished as the work that I would normally do, but they were like fun and interactive and I could do close-up magic and it kept people's minds off of looking at the internet and finding out what was going on back home.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And so that's how it ended up being. We just sort of made the best of it and did our best to entertain all of the people who were there, because what else could you do?
Yeah.
And it was weird because they asked the a cappella group to help out, and they did not want to.
Yep.
And they demanded a very large amount of money because I guess they just didn't read the news or understand how a neurovirus or pandemic works. But anyway,
read the room.
And they, so they just didn't do anything. I don't even know what the name. I don't know. I'm not going to name the act, mostly because I forgot the name of the act. And they were still around the ship the whole time. And as because we were all there for the next 14 days. Basically, we ended up having about 9, if not 10 sea days.
Yep.
And because of that, you could see like the guests would recognize them from the beginning of the cruise, and you could see the resentment in their faces the longer that they were not doing anything to entertain, and yet I was on show 11 or show 12, right?
Yeah.
So it was very interesting. And at the same time, I was there with like a Disney legend, the daughter of Herb Iwerks.
Leslie,
Leslie Iwerks.
Leslie Iwerks, who was a director and an amazing sort of Disney legend in her own right, but a sort of a documentarian of all these Disney things. But again, her family is, Herb drove Mickey Mouse. Let's just be very clear. He created a multi-plane camera. He did some important things. So she was just like enamored by all of this, and she was doing her best to try to help things out. And I ended up getting to hang out with her because we were all just sort of stuck there together, right? And we couldn't leave the ship. And so there was good stuff going on, but it was very obvious that like we were trying to make the best of it. So again, we jokingly referred to it as the last happiest place on earth. Yeah. Because by that time, everything else had shut down. All the theme parks had shut down. Stadiums, movie theaters, any public gathering place had shut down. And we were the last thing still kind of basically living the same way as we were.
Yeah, Leslie was amazing because it was the Imagineering story. It was just, I don't think it had come out yet. I think it was going to debut with Disney Plus like shortly after that cruise.
It was either just before, I think it may have been like just before. Yeah.
Okay. She was only planning, I think, to show like episode 1, and then she did like a talk afterwards, which was amazing. And she ended up like showing the whole series. She's like, I've got him here with me. Yeah. We saw Ashley, the cruise director, on our cruise that we did right the week before Christmas this year. And she was on board. Yeah, she's on the Fantasy.
Yeah, I was working with her on the Fantasy this year.
Oh, cool. And it was and Captain Fabian was there too. And so I walked up to Ashley, and Captain Fabian was on the Wonder during this cruise. And so I walked up to Ashley. I was like, Ashley, you probably don't remember me, but I remember you because we were on, that cruise. And I said, I don't know what it is about you and Captain Fabian, but you've got to figure this out, because they had to cancel our. It was a Western Caribbean itinerary, and they held us a day over in Florida because of some bad weather, and so we skipped Cozumel. So I was like, what is it about you and itineraries getting messed up? You and Fabian need to get this together, because this is just bad news. But no, it was great. She mentioned that cruise, the last happy cruise on Earth, was like one of her career highlights. And not just because of how awesome the crew was, but how amazing like you specifically were, and other than one act, the whole entertainment staff was, and honestly, how awesome her perception of the guests were, because like everybody to a T pretty much was like, well, this is different and completely unprecedented, and we're just going to go with it. Because what else are you going to do? We've seen so many people complain over every little thing, like my food's a little cold, or this thing is not great, and they'll make the biggest deal out of it. And we just yeah, we just had a great time. It was absolutely fantastic.
I mean, you had to. I mean, how are you going to then write? Well, it's a shame you didn't get to go on any ports. Well, whose fault is that, guys?
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Like, I'm pretty sure they would have stopped at a port if they could,
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But she mentioned me by name. Ashley did.
She did.
She
did. She did. Yes.
Nice.
Did you happen to have a random table offer you a grilled cheese sandwich on that cruise?
I'm sure that happened. I can't remember any of that. If that was you guys,
that was
that was us.
Well, thank you. Were you just making them in your cabin on a Foreman grill?
No. We will occasionally put up a challenge to chefs to make a grilled cheese sandwich, the best grilled cheese sandwich that they can.
Nice.
And yeah, it just became a thing on that cruise for some reason. I don't know why.
I think the last night we walked into dinner and there were 3 ginormous silver serving platters full of grilled cheese sandwiches. And so we ended up walking around to most of the dining room and offering grilled cheese sandwiches to people. We were basically that table at the dining room, but it's fine.
Hey, no, yeah. Have fun.
Exactly.
Do you get a regular dinner rotation when you are on the ships?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm on a dinner rotation, especially when I'm with my family, and then I will do the dinner rotation because it's great now because Rapunzel and Tiana's and all that stuff. My daughters think that's the greatest thing ever, and we do those for sure. But when I'm by myself, I'm completely honest. I have a tendency to hide out in my cabin and eat the room service, mostly because the entire sort of paced dinner that has to happen is just something that I don't have the time for that. I have other things I need to do. I have a show to put on. I'm writing new material. And so I don't want to deal with all of that. But if I'm with other people, if I know there's other guest entertainers on board, then yes, then I actually insist upon them going to dinner, especially the pirate night. I really like the pirate night.
Nice.
Yeah, I like that menu.
You're using kind of your downtime during the cruise when you're not on a show or prepping for a show. You're still working. You're doing stuff and developing and researching and things like that.
Yes, and I'm also, so there's the business side of it, right? Show business, right? So I mean, besides Disney, I have my clients that I'm doing different things for. I also direct and work on other magicians and other entertainer shows. So I do that remotely. A lot of the downtime I used last year was when I wrote my book, the first book of this series of books that I'm writing about entertainment for magicians. I'm definitely using that time. Let's just say this. If I didn't use that time and all I did was lounge around and go to the spa and go to the rainforest room and I'm away from my wife all that time, when I came back, she would not be as nice to me.
Fair.
And so if I can say, but honey, look, I wrote this book and we're making money off this book now, then at least I'm not completely spending all my time on vacation when I'm not there to help out with the little one.
No, I spinstered myself away and did nothing but work for the entire week-long cruise in the Caribbean. Remember, I hate the sand and the sun. So,
well, she knows that. So she knows that getting off on ports is not what I'm going to be doing that much anyway. So, yeah.
What is your favorite part about performing on a Disney cruise, even if it's not during a global emergency?
Well, I love being able to affect all ages. We talked about the Disney sort of product, right? And I love that little 4-year-olds will come up and hug me while the tweens, the hardened tweens are, I broke through them and now they want to learn a trick. Whereas the 19-year-olds who are in that weird age group where they can't drink, but they can't really be in the kids club have they want to come and see the adult show and they're laughing along because they get to experience what it like to be in a comedy club, and that's a big thing for them. And then adults that would never really only took the kids to the magic show because they are there to take the kids to the magic show, walk out and go, I enjoyed that just as much as they did. Yeah. So being able to hit on all of those levels is something that I don't get a chance to do, and especially when I'm back on land doing corporate work, I'm performing for guys who just usually, people who've just spent all day, in conference meetings and whatever, and I'm just comic relief before they eat their rubber chicken dinner and go back to their expense accounts, right? So like that's a completely different thing. And though I do well in that environment, it's nice to be able to have an entire range of people that hopefully walk away remembering me, and that's really nice.
So I guess our kind of last question here is, can you share a magic trick today with us? Obviously, given this is an audio-only podcast, this seems perfect for some close-up kind of magic.
All right, everybody, get closer to your iPhones, and we will, if you could look. No, there is audio magic, but I wasn't prepared for that.
No,
you can actually do interesting things audio-wise, but no, that's not really what I do. That usually lends to like mentalism and guys who can predict the future and read minds and predict sports scores, and that's not what I do. So, but it's fun, and that's a great idea. Maybe I should work on that for next time.
All right. Well, we'll hold you to that. All right. So we have kind of a rapid fire round here of some of your Disney favorites. You've grown up in the world of Disney. Alicia, be gentle with the guest this time, okay?
I suppose.
Okay. All right. Okay. So the world of Disney.
I'm scared just because of that. It scares me. Right.
So your answers can cover from the entire world of Disney, from classic characters, Marvel, Star Wars,
Pixar,
you name it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Let's go, Alicia.
It's easy. Favorite character?
I mean, I'm going to go traditional. Scrooge McDuck is probably my favorite overall Disney character. I read those comics.
The comics?
The original comics, and I'm a big fan of that stuff. So
nice.
Awesome.
Well, you have your own comic, too, if I remember correctly.
It's true. I actually it's back there. And, but yes, I wrote a comic. Comic books are a big part of my life.
Nice.
Favorite movie?
Of all time, it's tough, but I would say it's a tie between Avengers Endgame and then Disney-wise, of all the Disney sort of classics, I really still really enjoy The Lion King.
Excellent.
Favorite ride?
Mystic Manor and Hong Kong Disneyland.
Ooh.
Okay, I'm going to stick with the domestic parks here. Disney World or Disneyland?
Disneyland, because I live next to it. Not next to it, but a lot closer to it.
Yeah.
We just spent a week in Orlando seeing family, and we did a day at the parks, and it was great. And my daughter had the greatest time, and I got to go on Tron. I got to go on Guardians of the Galaxy, which were both. Guardians was really amazing, and it's like and Tron was okay.
Yep.
But
same.
It's okay. But we got to do some great stuff, including that Storytime thing with Belle. Storytime Tales with Belle. And my daughter got to be picked as Chip, and she's like, "Oh, I'm a teacup," and it was awesome. So, and we do not have that at Disneyland. So even though I'm a Disneyland purist and diehard, I got to give it to them for that thing, because that thing was amazing.
Yeah,
excellent.
Out of all of the parks that you've been to, what is your favorite park?
I'm gonna say Disneyland Paris. And that's just over the wire over Tokyo Disney Sea. I've been lucky enough to go to all parks except for Shanghai. I've not seen Shanghai in person, but I love Tokyo Disney Sea. It's beautiful. It's probably the most beautiful park, but there's something about the Paris Magic Kingdom Park that I just really love holistically, the way it looks, and then the attractions inside it, including Phantom Manor, which was probably another contender for my favorite Disney attraction. So
yeah.
Do you have a favorite hotel or resort?
I've stayed in a lot of them, but I grew up going to Fort Wilderness. We were there twice a year with family coming down from up north, because we all lived in Orlando, like I said. And so I'm great memories of Fort Wilderness, Marshmallow Marsh, the campfire show, roasting marshmallows with Chip and Dale, and the sing-along cowboy show, and all that stuff. And I have great memories of all that. So I will say Fort Wilderness.
Okay.
Nice.
Favorite DCL ship?
I'm a big fan of the classics. I'm right now on the Magic a lot. The Wonder was probably the ship that I was on the most before that. because I do the Alaska season a lot. That's another one they put me on. They do a lot of the West Coast stuff with me, San Diego West Coast stuff.
Yeah,
because it's easier for them to transport me. And so, I'm gonna say the Magic right now because my daughter really loves Rapunzel, and that's where Rapunzel is. So
excellent.
Right. Favorite sit down restaurant?
I just got to eat at Be Our Guest in Walt Disney World. And I loved it, and I thought it was great, and we had a really good time. And the food I thought was amazing, like just not just good, amazing. And the dessert for the kids, where they could pay the little teacup, insane, the best. So I think I'm going to have to go with that. But as a slight secondary thing, because again, I'm a Disneyland guy. I love the Carnation Cafe. And I like to eat like Walt. I like to get the chili and the fried pickles and that weird salad roll of the radishes. And I it's a big fan. I'm a big fan of that. I eat there with my daughter a lot. So
nice.
What room were you at Be Our Guest?
Oh, we were in the ballroom.
In the big ballroom. Nice.
Yeah, but our server was insanely good, the top notch. Yeah. And he gave us a tour of the other rooms.
Yep.
And holding my daughter's hand and pointing to things, and she just thought that was the greatest thing. So yeah, it's great.
Cast members are amazing. They really are.
Yeah, no, we've had pretty good luck. Great.
Mm-hmm. Last one. Your favorite Disney snack?
The gigantic pretzel at Pim's Test Kitchen in
yes.
It's my daughter's favorite thing too. And I can't tell you how many times we have sat and we have watched Black Widow climb down and do the little stunt show at there while we're eating that pretzel. And at the end, no matter what, my daughter at the end, when they win and she beats Taskmaster or whatever, my daughter always claps and goes, "Yay, Black Widow!" So I'm teaching her well. She's never seen a single Marvel movie, but she does know that. So
Perfect.
She gets to see them perform live, so she's got it.
Yeah, she knows them.
Yeah. Well, Jon, thank you so much. Where can people find you?
Well, my website is cardjon.com. That's where if you're interested in hiring me for events or things of that nature. But I'm pretty busy, so it's hard all the time. I'm lucky enough that for the next little while, I'll be going back and forth between both the Magic and the Wonder. So if you're taking cruises either out of Galveston or San Diego, you might see me there. This summer, I'll be doing not all, but a good amount of the Alaska cruises on the Wonder. So those are places you can check me out. And hopefully, you've heard this and come say hi and introduce yourself after the show. I would love to meet you.
One thing we forgot to ask. I know he couldn't be with here today because of quote unquote prior commitments, but how is Tiny Plunger doing?
He's okay. Yeah. I mean, he's a diva. And his ask for this podcast, which I thought was just way too much for you guys. So yeah, he's just not available right now because his agent's very, very, very insisted upon him getting paid for everything.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Jon. It was a pleasure spending some time with you.
Thank you. Nice meeting you guys. Thank you so much.
We are not affiliated with Disney or their subsidiaries, or Jon Armstrong or Tiny Plunger for that matter. These are our personal opinions and suggestions based on our own experiences. We do recommend working with a travel agent or contacting Disney directly to plan your perfect vacation.
If you have questions or suggestions, or would like to be interviewed on our show to share your Disney experiences, please send an email to podcast@ourmousecapades.com.
You can follow us on socials @OurMousecapades. Please take a moment, rate and review in your podcast app to help people find us.
Thanks for listening. We'll be in your ears next week.
Thank you for flying Star Tours. Bye-bye.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alicia.
And I'm Nathan.
Oh, and I'm Jon. I'm sorry. I forgot
it's all right.
Already. You gave me instructions. I'm like, I got this down. I can't hit my normal cue. Jeez.
No worries. Aren't you in showbiz? Jeez.
I know, right? Well, I'm a solo act, guys. There's a reason for that.